Little Drops of Wonderful podcast. My name is Ali, I'm in Kent in the UK, and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Starry Eyes Ali. This is my channel to talk about all things crochet, knitting and craft related, all the good stuff. And actually I never say, I think I probably did say quite early on, sorry, is there steam coming out of this? But the reason my podcast is called Little Drops of Wonderful is because that's representative of the part that craft and knitting and crochet play in my life. I'm a very busy working mum of two, and I set myself numerous unrealistic daily challenges, goals, and hold myself to ridiculously high standards. And the bits of time in my day that I get to do the things I enjoy, like crochet, knitting, playing about with crafty stuff and just generally doing all of that, those are my little drops of wonderful in my day. It's cheesy, but it's quite a good name. Yes, I'm just having, the reason I'm steaming, I don't know if you can see the steam, is because I've just poured a cup of tea. I've got a new mug. If you've watched, oh, welcome back everyone. If you've seen this podcast before and you're returning, welcome back. If you're new, hello, welcome. There are new viewers actually. I was going to check before I started filming, but I've got my iPad in front of me because I'm so very organised today. Just turn off Stranded Dyeworks podcast, which I was just watching, and I will tell you how many subscribers. iPad's not working. Everything's blooming breaking at the moment. My laptop's broken, which is a problem because it might mean that I can't actually upload this video. So that will be interesting. 578 subscribers. So I was going to talk to you today, a bit later in this episode, about my Celebrate Everything giveaway, which is to celebrate reaching 500 subscribers plus 1,000 subscribers on Instagram. I think I'm up to 1,007. That's nuts. And also my significant birthday. So that's 3 things we're celebrating, but I'm going to talk about that later in the podcast. So it's actually going to be a 600 subscriber giveaway, or maybe I should do a different one for that. Let me think. Yeah, so my mug. If you're new, that's what I would say. So if you are a new viewer, one of my new viewers, welcome. I have a thing about lobsters, and I went as part of my 40th birthday celebrations. My mum took me to see Matthew Bourne's ballet of The Red Shoes, which was amazing. I don't normally like the ballet. I don't normally really like going to the theatre, but that was incredible. And before we went, we had a little wander around Canterbury in Kent, which is where we were going to the theatre, and there's a kids and shop, and this was in there. On the back there's the, I'll explain what's dangling from it in a minute. There's the tail. So I saw that and it had to come home with me. Most things in Cath Kids are ridiculously overpriced, but this, for a mug, it's about £6, so it wasn't too bad. And in it, I have got a little dangling bird, which only arrived yesterday from eBay because Lily of the Nordic Stitches podcast has sent me some loose tea, and I didn't have anything to infuse it with. So this is a little birdie tea infuser, but the little chain that's on it is not really long enough to prevent disastrous dropping of chains into hot tea. So I tied a bit of yarn to it. Yarn works in any situation. Rambling. I'm back in my usual space, in my kitchen, and just so you all know, the timestamps for everything. Sorry, I've still got this cough and cold, which I've had now for about 4.5 weeks. And I really ought to go to the doctor's, but every time I phone up to make an appointment, the doorbell rings, or I'm on hold for ages, or I have to go and do the school run, or so I just keep suffering, which is ridiculous. Anyway, the timestamps for everything I'm going to talk about are underneath this video. So if you want to jump to any particular section, which will be finished objects, half finished objects, works in progress, incoming, sharing the love, and that's about it, with lots of rambling in between in case you haven't worked that out yet. Yeah, so that's it. I've got a new phone. If you watched the last episode, you will know that I dropped my phone down the toilet during my family meal. Well, just after my family meal out with for my birthday, and it was unsavable. I'm sorry to say that phone has now met its end, and I had to get a new one. However, I have the next model of iPhone up. I'm still filming on the forward-facing rear, the not as good side of the camera, because that's about as technical as I've managed to get so far. So, and it does seem to, I don't know, it seems okay. I thought it looked like it was focusing a bit weirdly, but hopefully we'll be all right. Right, so I think we will get straight into it. So let's start with finished objects. Right, I have one finished object, and it is my springtime socks. So these are my springtime socks, which I have knit out of yarn that I hand dyed myself using Kool Aid. And if you look back on my channel, you will see that I did a little extra video, an extra drops, where I filmed what I did. And I did 2 50-gram skeins of yarn. I did one in the pan, which produced this, and I did one hand painted, which produced knocking things flying, which produced a more vibrant one. So I'm going to do something with this one next. But yeah, so this is the more pastel shade, which I did on the hob, and the green, the heels, toes and cuffs, with a mini that was sent to me by Lorraine of the Lorraine Pugh Designs podcast. She sent me a little parcel some time ago, and it had a mini in it, and it was this Moody Melon by Hand Dyed by Kate. So that looks really good, and I have finished, just to prove that it is a finished object, I do have two. And yes, your eyes do not deceive you. Despite being knit on identical needles, 2.25mm short circulars, and despite being exactly the same yarn, and despite both of them having 56 stitches, and despite me ruthlessly counting where I started the gusset increases, how many times I work it, one sock is bigger than the other. Look, let me see. Not by much, and not so that you notice when you wear them, but look. Why is that? Why has that happened? This was this pair of socks. This is my sock notebook where I keep just details. It's all about socks, only socks. This was my 11th pair of socks. So you think I might have actually picked up a thing or two, but it turns out the learning curve continues. Oh, and I did this, sorry, hair on there. This, and also, look, hair and ends that have not been woven in, terrible. This was a 1x1 rib, because I normally do 2x2 and I fancied something different. I tried a twisted rib and failed miserably, but I don't like the 1x1. You can see the tension's kind of all over the place. Not very nice. Can't tell when you're wearing them. They're very, very comfortable. Yeah, I really like those. I think these are sort of right out there, my favourite socks that I've made. I think because so much of my own work went into them, because I did the yarn myself as well. And they were knit with using the Sockmatician's Toe Up recipe, which is a paid for pattern on Ravelry. And that is pretty much at the moment my go-to recipe for socks. I do like to knit toe up. So that's it for finished objects. I do have a half finished object. By the way, I'm looking, excuse me one moment. Blooming cough. Blooming fringe. I am looking down at my notes because I am trying to be more organised, because last episode, okay, I was sort of marginally hungover and a bit tired and a bit full of like the aftermath of the celebrations for my birthday, but I missed out loads. There was so much I should have said about things and I just didn't. So I'm writing stuff down so I know, and I'm writing it down in this book, which my husband bought me as part of my birthday. I wonder, I'm reading it back, I wonder if it's supper time yet. and it's a Snoopy book because I do like Snoopy, and that's the back. Laughter is good for the soul. Well, it would say that if I took the sticker off it. Laughter is good for the soul. So, and I've written all my notes in here, see, so I can keep track. Isn't that organised? Right, so I do have a half-finished object. Now, there's quite a long story behind this. I'm taking part in the Basket of Mittens year-long cow, which is being run by Tiffany of the Wool and Homestead podcast, and Granny Sheep, she's Granny Sheep on Ravelry, and she's My Wool Mitten on Instagram. It's a bit like the box of socks, but it's a basket of mittens. So I'm doing quite well in terms of, I have done my January mittens, I've done my March mittens, my April mittens on hold because I couldn't get the right gauge for the ones I wanted to make, but I am going to stick with those as my April mittens, but I've had to order some new needles. So those are the travelling cable mittens by Pearl Soho. So there'll be more on those probably next time. My May mittens are underway, but I can't share those because they're a test knit for Hannah of Rose Hip Knit. I think it's Rose Hip Knits podcast. And I'm going to knit those with this. This is a Stranded Dye Works paint box colourway, and paint box being one that isn't repeated. It's a sort of happy accident, and it's a DK weight yarn. I was going to use Citadel Snuggly, and then I spotted this, which I've had for ages, and I thought, oh, I'll use that. It's 100% superwash merino. It's her castaway base. So I think I'm going to use this for the mittens, my May mittens. And I've got my June mittens planned because I've got a lovely pattern that someone gifted me. So I'm going to do that. But that leaves February. February I had completed a very, very long-term languishing whip as part of, which was a mitten, a crocheted mitten, which I'd started years ago. And I finished it for my February mittens. And I hated it and I didn't like it. And after a little bit of chatting about it on here and some comments, I felt enabled to be able to frog it. So I wanted it still to be a crochet pattern, and I wanted to still use the same yarn so that effectively it was just a reworked version of my original plan for February. So I got a pattern on Ravelry. It's a free pattern called the Ice Chip Mitts, and it's by Kathy North. This is the printed thing, so you can see. So chunky looking textured mitts. And I was using, because this was years ago, black yarn. Why was I using black yarn? I mean, it's just so difficult on the eyes. So I got gauge and I made my first glove with and that's it. And I hated it. I can't, it feels like I'm holding something. So it's got this fold over section, which you fold down. It's like a rib section. No. And it's too loose, and it feels like, again, I've got really small wrists and hands, and no. And the yarn, I don't know what it is because I can't remember, but I think it's some kind of cotton blend because it is quite, not stiff, you know, it's soft, but it holds its stitch shape, if that makes sense. It feels almost, I can't explain it. You know, it feels cottony. So I went down, the pattern calls for a 5mm hook. I knit these on a 4.5, and I went right down to an I don't know hook, hang on a minute, 3mm hook. And I did the pattern again, and I just did a little bit more so that they would keep the length but lose the width. And I went right down to 3mm, and this time it came out like that. And I did it so that I'm not folding over the rib bit because that was just annoying me. But everything else is the same, and I just did a bit more of the main hand pattern, which is a back loop, front loop, back loop, front loop, single stitch. American terms. And then the thumb's the same, but I think I did an extra row on the thumb, I think, just to get that length because I'm using such a smaller hook size. So I've still got ends flapping about. Yeah, so I'm really pleased with that, and they fit well, and because they've got that cotton in them, I think they will stretch a bit because they are nice and snug. But I really like my socks and my gloves to have a bit of negative ease, because otherwise to me they just feel too much. But I do want to decorate it because it's a bit boring. So I started playing around with some yarn. I'm going to see if I can get it to stick. Don't know if you can see that. Let me put it on my hand like that. It's curling up. I need to block it. But I made up a little oh, blowing out. Why is it doing that? New camera, sorry. Let's try this way. I made a little butterfly. Sorry about the dye all over my hands. I'll explain that shortly. Oh, silly camera. It's a butterfly, which I just made up. And my plan was that I'm going to make a little butterfly that goes there, and it's going to have a little trail that goes there. So that's my half finished object. Yeah, so I'm pleased to be a little bit more back on track with my basket of Mittens cow. Although I've still got to go and update in the Ravelry group to sort of say I've been doing it and post pictures and stuff like that. But I do feel a little bit more in control of that because I think I've been feeling a little bit overwhelmed with my crafting recently. I think I've been setting myself a lot of slightly unrealistic crafting goals. I've got a lot of works in progress on at the moment, and a lot of things I want to do, and not just knitting and crochet, but you know, sewing, things around the house, books I want to read. There's some parcels I want to send out. You know, I like to do things properly, and I want to make things nice and give myself the time to do that. And I feel that I've actually been pushing myself too much, which is ridiculous because I'm starting to get stressed out about the things that are, you know, the passions in my life that I love so much. And it shouldn't get to the point where I'm feeling stressed out about it. So all the works in progress that I've got going on at the moment, I'm actually just going to, apart from one project, she says, I'm gonna what I want to do is finish everything I've got outstanding that aren't long-term projects. So I've got one pair of socks on the needles, my speckled space socks, which I won't show you today because I haven't made any progress. I've got my other works in progress, which you will see shortly, and I want to get those done before I move on to anything else, because I want to feel relaxed about my crafting. I don't want to feel that I'm putting pressure on myself. I'd never taken part in a knit along or a crochet along before this year, and it is nice. I am finding I enjoy the challenge of trying to, you know, complete things when they're supposed to be completed, but I perhaps underestimated not the work, but the time that's involved in keeping up with a cow. I'm still really glad that I'm doing them, but I think I'm beginning to realise I prefer the more long-term cows, you know, where it's like one shawl that runs for a month or two, rather than the monthly Mittens cow, which I am really enjoying, and certainly very, very pleased to see my basket of Mittens growing. But I find that a harder thing to keep up with. But again, I'm enjoying the challenge. So I'm kind of glad that I made a decision at the beginning of this year to get involved in some cows, because it has, because, you know, I've always seen them from afar and thought, oh, that looks fun. So it's taught me a bit about what I enjoy and what I want to get from a cow. And actually, do you know, the one thing that doesn't bother me with a cow, and that never really occurs to me, is prizes. But for me, it's not about, I mean, obviously, always winning stuff is lovely, and I have won stuff in things in the past, and that feeling is incredible, where you hear your name read out and you're like, oh my goodness, that's me, I've won something, and then some bundle of amazing yarny squidginess arrives in the post a few weeks later, and yeah, that's great. But that, for me, that's not the motivation for joining in with the cow. It really is the sense of achievement and the completion and knowing that you've made this, and yeah, that's what I take away from them. So with that in mind, I do have one more thing that I want to cast on, which is the Higa shawl, but I'm going to get onto that in the next section. So shall we move on to works in progress? Okay, so my first work in progress is one that I talked about last time. I'm just going to have a mouthful of my tea because honestly, my cough is awful. That's nice. Oh my goodness, that's so nice. It's a loose leaf tea, which is all like strawberry, like fruit, like dried fruit. I don't think I put quite the amount it said on the packet in. I just put what I could stuff in my little birdie in there. Oh, that is so nice. That's so nice on my throat. My first work in progress is the Hotel of Bees Shawl. Now, I talked about this last week, and then when I was editing my podcast, I realised that I just neglected to say so much about this project. So I'm going to really try hard and not miss anything out. The reason I am making the Hotel of Bees Shawl, which is a project by Christina Hadderingh, who is a spoonful of yarn. That's her blog name. I think, is it her blog name or her designer name? I think it's her blog name. A spoonful of yarn, Christina Hadderingh. I'm making it as part of the crochet along that is being run by Sandra, who is Cherry Heart and has a Cherry Heart podcast here on YouTube, and Sam, who is Betsymakes and has the Betsymakes podcast here on YouTube. And they're both lovely, and I really do enjoy their podcasts. And as soon as they both crochet, they both crochet and knit. They're both very clever, but they're both primarily crochet podcasters, which is why I started watching them, because crochet is my first love. And knitting is fairly new to me. I've been doing that for about a year and a half now, maybe not quite, a year and a couple of months. And it's very much a learning curve, but I know where I am with crochet, and crochet is my comfort zone, and not always my comfort zone. Certainly this project hasn't been in my comfort zone, but it is my happy place. So I'm doing it as part of their Hotel of Bees Shawl cow, which is running until the end of May. And I will dip it into So Sweet Violet's Be Happy Make Along as well, I think, which she's running, and she's so Sweet Violet here on YouTube as well. Stop saying So here's how far I've got, and I will hold it round the correct way, not the wrong way. Why do I keep saying Have a cup of tea and trying to drown the ums out. So this is where I've got to. Now you will notice that this is not yellow or honey coloured. This is pink and grey, and there is a reason for it. Sorry if I'm stating the bleeding obvious. I have a tree in my garden. It's a crabapple tree, and in the early part of spring it goes into blossom, and the blossom is a pinky creamy blossom, and the bees go nuts for it. For the entire time that blossom is out, the bees are happy as Larry, buzzing around. And I caught sight of the bees doing this, and I was really struggling to come up with my colour choices. And I thought, brilliant, I'll use the crabapple tree as my inspiration. So the crabapple tree in our garden has a very dark browny grey bark, and as I said, the blossom is cream and pink, primarily pink. And I have this skein of yarn, this pink, which is coming out more red. It looks like a reddy pink on the screen, but it's actually a bit more of a peachy pink. I might turn the camera around so I can give you a look at it actually. So that has not worked whatsoever. It's still coming out a reddy pink rather than a peachy pink. So all you're getting really is a little bit of a close-up. So here are the wings. This is the wing section. And this is the bees section. Can you see the little bees? Excuse my terrible filming. And then there's a honeycomb section, which I'll show you in a second. And then I'm up to the second wings section. And where are my bees? These bees are a bit less obvious because they're with this yarn. These are my bees. That's a Crayola pen. And this is my matching Peanuts pen to go with my Peanuts notebook. Okay, so that didn't work out terribly well. This is a really rambly episode, I apologise. I promised myself that today I wouldn't worry about time because I think the last couple of times I've just felt really like I've rushed myself, and I just wanted to take the time and really talk to you about things so that afterwards when I'm editing it I don't keep going, oh, I wish I'd mentioned that. So you start off with your, get the right one round. You start off with your wings, you go through to an open honeycomb section, you've got bees, you have a large honeycomb section which is a filet crochet. I learned from this project that I don't like filet, that's the right way to say it, crochet very much. It's quite hard, it requires quite a lot of concentration, but like I said last time, the good thing about this pattern is every couple of rows you lose a couple of stitches, so you start at the widest point and it gets narrower and narrower, so just as you're getting fed up with one section you're on to the next, which is great as far as I'm concerned. And then we are on to the second bees section. I need to pop my bees through to the other side there. There's my bees, and then I'm on to the next fillet. I think it's a mini honeycomb section there. So that's where I am up to. The pattern calls, stop saying that. The pattern calls for a chain, which you start with, and then you work your first row of single crochets into that chain. But I really get fed up with working single crochets into a very long chain, so I started my Hotel of Bees Shawl with a foundation single crochet stitch, which there's tons of tutorials for on YouTube and online, because I forget how to do it every time I go to use it and I have to go and refresh my memory. So yeah, that's how I started mine, and that made for a really nice easy beginning to the project, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm using I should say, the pattern is actually for a sport weight yarn. Sorry, this is going to be like the coughing and the podcast, that's what I should call it. The pattern calls for a sport weight yarn, which is actually quite hard to get in the UK, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. I couldn't find any sport weight yarn that I wanted to use for it, and I had this beautiful pink, oh, which I should have said, this pink is by Kate Salim and it's called Peppermint Candy, I think. Let me just check that. Yeah, Peppermint Candy. It is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon, and there's 425 meters in 100 grams. That's the thing, and that's the other side. This was a present from a friend of mine who sent it to me just before Christmas, very kindly, and it was perfect for this project. And I was a little bit wary. Oh, and the grey is Drops Flora. The colourway is, oh, there's no, oh, it doesn't say a name, Colour 4, 04. And I was a bit worried about the combination because it isn't your typical sort of honeybee colours. But now that I've seen how it's working up, now we've got that more solid block of grey, I'm really loving it. Yeah, and it's all 4-ply. And I'm using a 4.5mm hook, which is really boring because it's just one of the grey ones. I've got loads of Fimo and I keep thinking, oh, maybe I'll Fimo it and make it all pretty, but that's just another thing to add to my list of crafty things that I won't have time to do, and at the moment I'm not doing that. Get the things done and then move on to other endeavours. So that is my Hotel of Bees shawl. There should be a third colour coming up for that shawl. In the pattern towards the very end, which won't be very long, there is a third colour, which I can't decide on. So it might be that I have to try and find a third colour somewhere, that I have a little bit of a stash dive, see if I've got anything lurking, or that I just continue with 2 colours. I don't know. I think there's quite a few people doing it with just 2 colours. There's quite a few people doing it with just 1 colour, which also looks amazing. So I don't think the overall finished look will suffer for not having a third colour. And that's all living in my tropical birds bag, which is just one that I made for me. I have another work in progress, which wasn't a work in progress last time I spoke to you. But in order to show it to you, because it doesn't look like much, I need to go and get a book. So bear with. Sorry about that. I had to go and get this book. If you're watching the last episode, this was a gift from my sister. It is Animal Heads, Trophy Heads to Crochet. And it is by Vanessa Moonchi. Mooncy or Moonchi? You decide. My sister gave this to me for my birthday. My sister is a vegetarian and in the past, vegan. I like to call her my sandal wearing vegan sister. She's also a crazy collector of various small animals. She has been a keeper of chickens and is currently the head of a household full of rabbits and guinea pigs. So she has written in here, at last vegetarians can hang animal heads on their walls like the rest of civilization. So it's slightly creepy, but she wants me to make her this, which is the fox head. And the idea is she wants to hang this above her bunny's hutch as a warning to all foxes that might feel like they might get a free meal. And she, as part of my birthday hamper, because she gave me a big hamper filled with all things crochet, yarn and knitting, gave me the yarn to make this, plus the stuffing, plus the backing board. So it was a fairly hefty hint, really. Plus there was a post-it saying, you know, make this one. So I thought I'd better get started. And it's living in my Oh So Lily bag, which she's got an Etsy shop, and it's just perfect for 2 Mahusif balls of yarn and a work in progress. So I've got my foxy colours. Oh no, what's that on it? Oh, the white is shedding onto the orange. And I have begun the process of constructing the snout. Well, this was interesting when I was crocheting that, not one to make in public. But you can probably just about see it starting to take shape. It's a really interesting construction, and it's a really, what is this? What's the weight of this? Double knit. It's a double, but it's quite a heavy double knit, or maybe I'm just thinking that because it's in such big squidgy balls that I'm used to. Yeah, so it's double knit, and you do it with a 3mm hook. So it's a really nice, dense fabric. Because obviously when this is done, this is going to be on the wall, and it will gather dust and wear in the same way that other things that are on display. And in the book, it actually gives you tips on caring for the finished object. So if you've got it hung up, it gives you tips on how to keep it dust free and how to clean it if it gets dusty, etc. Which I thought was quite handy, because it is, you need to consider the practical implications of having a crocheted animal head on display in your home, don't you? So it's under construction, and I'm really enjoying this. I do like making amigurumi, but this has the advantage of none of those fiddly little tails and legs. I do get a bit fed up with legs. I don't mind making legs, it's just that you always have to make like 4 of them or 2 of them. And if you're only making 2 of them, you've still got to make the arms. So really it's always 4 of them. And then there's the tail, and it does get a bit samey, but this doesn't have legs because it's, you know, a beheaded fox, which is really creepy if you think about it. But yeah, so that's my other work in progress, which I'm really enjoying doing. But I'm mainly working on my Hotel of Bees at the moment because I'm really enjoying that. And it's just really nice to be in a crochet zone at the moment. What with my mittens, my Hotel of Bees, my fox. Yeah, that's yes. Basically, all of my work's in progress at the moment, bar the ones that are kind of in the background that I'm not going to show you this week. They're all crochet. All my foreground works in progress are crochet. Apart from, sorry, massive coughing fit. Had to pause and take a moment then. It must have been the excitement about what I was about to tell you. I have two other forms of work that's in progress. I've got some yarn dyeing and I have got some sewing, which never happens because I never have time to do it. And I'm sitting in my kitchen. This is where we eat our meals. This is where the homework gets done. This is where all manner of stuff goes on. Anything I do in here, which is where most messy crafty stuff or space-taking crafty stuff takes place, has to be cleared up at the end of every session, and that is a pain. My sewing machine is down here on the floor, and when I get it out, I have a box which has got all the plugs, all of my paraphernalia, my scissors and pins and the bits and bobs that you need, and it all goes in a box. There's a big cupboard here which it goes into the back of. So to get my sewing stuff out, I have to kind of clamber over the ironing board and stuff. So it's a bit of a pain. So that's why sewing doesn't happen often. But I have had the fabric cut out for some project bags for some time. And I got a bit of time yesterday to make them. So I thought I would show them to you. And I'm also going to show you the fabric I've got for the next one. So hold on, because that's just on the floor. Cough, 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 splutter, splutter, splutter. So my first one is not a work in progress at all, it's a finished object. Well, it's a bit of a work in progress because I've still got to sew up the lining. And this is a super, super padded project bag. I ordered wadding from eBay. I know nothing about sewing. I don't make these to sell, I make them for me or for gifts. But quite honestly, I'm not sure how happy anyone would be to get this as a gift because it's a bit wonky. I ordered wadding from eBay and it's a really thick one and I wasn't sure if it'd be the right one. Even when it arrived I was like, oh god, that looks a bit thick, but actually it works really well. It's really squidgy, like a kind of mini pillow, and it also means it stands up on its own, but it's not so squidgy that it's ridiculous. It's a nice squidgy. I'm not even sure if it's the right stuff to use for bags. It's like a wadding, and I suppose if you pulled it, it would kind of pull apart. I mean, you'd have to pull it quite hard, but it would kind of break, if you know what I mean. So this is fabric I had for ages, which I actually bought in Hobbycraft probably about 10 years ago, just because I like the pattern, and I could never find the right project for it. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I've got this hanging around, make something. This is fabric I bought in a fabric shop in Whitstable, which is a seaside town in Kent. It's got a zip, which is basically could be entered in a competition for the world's wonkiest zip. I don't know if you can quite see, but that is, I mean, this is truly terrible sewing, and my methods as well, my methods of sewing would make anyone on the Great British Sewing Bee shudder. And it's lined, I often line my bags with this, just because I had so much of it initially, but I love it. I love this fabric. It's an organic cotton, and I don't know if you can see, but that's actually a cotton flower, and it says organic cotton, and it's perfect for lining bags. This needs to be sewn up in the middle, but it's perfect for lining bags because it's interesting, but it's bright enough that you can still see what's going on in there. And I just put a little bit of a ribbon there so to help when you're undoing it. Although really it should probably, I don't. It's decorative and it looks pretty, and I nearly forgot to put it on, so I had to kind of unpick and stick it back in at the last minute. This is the perfect size for like a shawl. It's like it would fit your yarn and your shawl in there quite nicely. Really pleased with that, and I'm keeping this one This one is for me. In fact, I'm going to put in my Higa shawl into that, which again, I will talk about in a moment. So that's my first bag, which is kind of a finished object. This is a work in progress. This is the same fabrics that I've used, the same kind of, this is a kind of weird linen-y, canvasy fabric. It really slips about, which is why I wanted to use it, because it's a bit hard to sew. Same fabric, same little tag there, but this is actually a drawstring bag. I just haven't found a drawstring for it, but if I've got enough of this ribbon that I've used for the tab, I will use that for the drawstring. It is also lined with the linen, so that it carries through like that onto the top. The base of it needs sewing. And this is a sock project bag, so if you can imagine when it's all bunched up like that, it's a perfect size for a pair of socks. And I really love this bag, I really do. And I've got, this is all a result of experimenting. I have made bags in the past and not written down how I've done it. I haven't taken measurements, I've just cut the fabric that I've got and used it in that way. This time I wrote down the measurements because I wanted to work out how to repeat the bags, because I think it would be quite nice to be able to make them for giveaways. Not that they're the best made bags in the world. You're not going to be receiving a bag from someone who truly knows what they're doing when it comes to a sewing machine, but they're handmade, and they're handmade with a lot of love and enjoyment, so that makes them worthwhile. Yes, so when it came to that, I've written down all the measurements, and they were all slightly different sizes. So I didn't know, for example, that that one was going to be so much bigger than that one. So I'm really, really pleased with this size, and I think this is probably going to be my favourite little size for making a small sock bag. Really happy with that. And I have more fabric cut out for a slightly different size. Let me just take my notes off of it. A slightly different size again, so again this is going to come out differently. It's the same Japanese garden fabric, which I really love because it reminds me, if you watch my Cornwall little vloggy bit, you'll see that we went to a Japanese garden in Cornwall, and it was just one of those days where we just stumbled across all the right things at the right times. And it reminds me of that. And then I had this lovely pink, it's like a canvasy type fabric, which I had some left over for making a bean bag for my daughter's new bedroom. So that's going to be the base fabric, and I suspect it will be a similar size to the sock one. I haven't decided yet if this is going to be a drawstring or a zip, but I think looking at the size of it and what I plan to do, it might be a zip, but I haven't decided. But it will be a bag, and I've cut out the lining already, and it's the same organic cotton. And like this other drawstring bag, I'm going to line it with a sew-in interfacing, like a thick one. So that's my other work in progress. So one of these bags, this one or this one, is going to go into my giveaway, my Celebrate Everything giveaway, which I will talk about towards the end of the podcast. But that's not the only non-knitting crochet thing that I have been working on. No. In my last episode, I showed you that my mother-in-law had very kindly bought me 2 yarn dyeing kits and a load of yarn to dye. So I've been having a go at that. Now this brings me on to the Higa shawl as well. I want to join in. I have got the Higa shawl was donated to this podcast as part of a giveaway prize, which was announced. The winners were drawn last episode. And the cow for that starts on the 1st of May, or started on the 1st of May. Today is Thursday the 4th. It's the Star Wars Day. It's the 4th of May. It's May the 4th be with you day. I should have known that from the start. It is Star Wars Day. But I have been agonising over my colour choices. You can't see this because it's black and white. But this is a 2-colour shawl. And it's kind of striped, but then this section in the middle, you kind of, I don't know what that technique is called, having not read through the pattern yet, but you're kind of working one colour over the other. So I wanted to do it in two sort of solid colourways, because just to me, that's how I felt that I wanted to work with it. And I knew that originally I wanted it in cream and grey, but I've been thinking a lot about colours that I wear and what suit me. And I've been trying to work out what my colours are, and I don't. Every test I do online, I come out both. I think it must be somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I don't know what colours suit me. But I do know that I feel best in quite strong colours, bright yellows and oranges and reds and royal blues, and greens. So I thought I would get a nice, really nice, bright, grassy, appley green colour to contrast with grey, and that would look quite good because I wanted quite a strong contrast. Then I thought, no, I will dye myself that green. So yesterday, I had a productive day yesterday, what with sewing and everything as well. I got my yarn kit out. I divided the 100-gram skein of yarn that it came with into two 50-gram skeins, which according to the pattern would therefore give me enough meterage for my contrasting colour, 50 grams. I have worked this out. And I dyed up some green. And I did this, and I got in a horrible mess. I got covered in dye, had a great time. And I had a few issues. I love the colour. I made green using the blue and yellow dyes. And then 10 minutes into the heating, I put some more dye in that was yellow directly into the water while the yarn was in there, and I didn't stir it. I just let it sink so that I could get some kind of highlights. I tied the yarn for dyeing in about 5 different places with a figure of 8 ties, and it came out in one big hot mess, and it took me 2 podcasts this morning to unravel it and get it re-skeined. So I don't know what I did wrong there, because I thought that I had protected myself against massive yarn tangles, but clearly I hadn't. But the colour's nice. In the other pot, because I was having a bit of an experiment and I had another 50 grams, I put in some red dye, and I put in my other 50 grams. And then on top of that, about 10 minutes in, I put in some yellow. And this is what I got. Now, this is not coming out on camera as it looks. It is that bright. It is a really bright, vibrant orange. And I prefer this. So let me give you the yarn that I'm intending to use for the Bees Shawl to contrast is probably going to be the same Drops Flora that I am using for my, not for my coffee, for my Hotel of Bees shawl. So I'm going to try and show you the contrast. So that, yeah, I like that, the green and the grey, very nice. Very nice indeed. But ignore the pink, ignore the pink. Pay no attention to the pink. The grey and the orange. Now that I love. So my Bees Shawl is going to now be bright orange, which goes with my red hair. My hennaed hair. And grey. So thanks to a little experimentation in the dye pots, and thanks to my mother-in-law for buying the kit for me in the first place, I have my colours for my Bees Shawl. So I am very, very pleased with that, and I can now just make sure I've got the needles and cast that on. This is also a hot mess. I've skeined it up like that to try and hide it, but you can still see. I'm going to have to spend some time unravelling this later. Not sure when. Both my girls have got friends coming around this afternoon, so it's going to be insane. I've also got another one. I had a mini skein to dye. This is also a mess and needs re-scheming. Now, I love this green. This came out brilliantly. They are different. You can see one's kind of a Kelly green, the bottom one, and this top one's more like an emerald green. Now, this was a mini skein, it's just 20 grams. And what I did with this one is I didn't pre-soak it. I just put it straight in. I made the dye bath with the citric acid in it. And I put it straight into the dye bath. Without soaking, and actually it's absorbed the yarn just fine, absorbed the dye just fine, very even. I did pour a little bit of yellow on top as well halfway through, so I'm quite pleased with that. I thought it would make quite a big difference, but it didn't. With all three skeins though, they didn't absorb all the dye. I did add extra acid, citric acid, when I realised that the water wasn't clear. This one was fairly clear, but it didn't absorb all the dye. And even when I was rinsing them afterwards, I rinsed and rinsed and rinsed. I gave them a bit of a wash with washing up liquid, and I still couldn't get the water to run clear. So if anyone out there knows why that might be, what I did wrong, A, with getting the yarn tangled up, what did I do wrong? I did tie it in about 5 places, but I must have done something wrong. And why I couldn't get the yarn to absorb all the dye, is that a problem? It's still bleeding a little bit, what should I do? But if you've got any advice on what to do about that or what I did wrong, please do tell me in the comments below or on Ravelry, or send me a message on Instagram, because I would really love to hear. I find this process really fascinating. It's messy and time consuming, and I can't do it often, and I will only ever do it for projects for myself, but I do love the process of doing it, and I do love then working with the yarn that I've dyed myself afterwards. I find that really nice, but really rewarding. It's a really nice feeling. So next section we're going to do is incoming. So last episode I talked about my birthday haul, but I didn't talk about all of it because it was so massive, because I was so lucky, and now my birthday celebrations are over and people come to visit me but they don't bring me gifts anymore, and that's rubbish. So we're just going to relive a little bit of it and go through some of the other stuff that I got for my birthday. Then after this section I will talk about my giveaway. I've got all of my stuff that I want to talk about in the basket that my sister turned up with on my birthday. This was stuffed with things that she had bought for me. She did such a good job of putting together a parcel. I'm going to just quickly talk about the yarn that my mum bought me. So I knew about this yarn because I asked for it. Well, one of the skeins I asked for, and 2 of the skeins I chose myself when we went to when we went to Unravel. This first one is by River Knits. River Knits is Becky, I think she's Becky, and she's River Knits yarn on Instagram. I might be wrong. I will be putting it up somewhere on the screen now. River Knits. This is 100% hand-dyed superwash blue face Leicester. It's 4-ply in the colourway Starry Night. Look at that yarn. It's called Starry Night, and that's what it looks like. It reminds me of that Monet painting. Is it Monet? Do you know the painting I mean? And I've seen this knit up. I've seen it on her Instagram feed, and it really does look like a starry night. Too good for socks. This is the problem with hand-dyed yarn. I don't want to make socks with any of it. It's too good to put on your feet. She dyes all of her yarn and lives on a riverboat in the UK. It's worth looking her up on Instagram because I know I've talked about her before in a Sharing the Love section, but yeah, it's really fascinating. I can't believe she does all that dyeing on a boat. Yeah. And the next yarn that I've got is 2 skeins that I chose when we went to Unravel. One is a plain Stellina. It's a 4-ply fingering weight, natural colour, 100 grams, 400 metres, 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% Stellina sparkle. And that is from lovely Rosie's Moments, who, if you go to any of the yarn shows here in the UK, you will probably have come across. They have an amazing stall with a huge array of yarn. And to go with it, I have from West Green Loft Yarns. I always get those words the wrong way round, which is Vicky McIntosh. And this is called Choc Chip. Also 4-ply, 400 metres in 100 grams. This is 80%. Oh, I thought it was the other way around. It's 80% bamboo, 20% merino. Oh, no wonder it's so soft. Blimey. That's their Choc Chip. And this is to go with this yarn. So these are to go together for an Across the Pond shawl by Mina Phillip, who is the knitting expat. Something to look forward to. So that's the yarn for my mum. And then my sister, there is some more yarny stuff. I'm going to show you some non-yarny stuff as well. Well, it's related. She got me some books. Now I showed you that she got me the Animal Heads books, but she also got me Magical Shetland Lace Shawls to knit. Feather soft and incredibly light, 15 great patterns and instructions. And we've got an example of one of them there. That's something to aspire to, isn't it? That's huge, that shawl. I really like the one on the front, actually. It's more of a wrap than a shawl. But there's some lovely, lovely, lovely designs in here, though. And advice on making mini shawls to practice techniques. Apprentice pieces, I think they're called. So yeah, really looking forward to that at some point in the future. Getting stuck into a really nice lace shawl. I think that would be a really nice challenge for me when I've got when I'm in a clearer headspace. I think that would be a lovely challenge. Maybe something to do over the summer, actually. That would be a really nice summer project, something like that, wouldn't it? And she also made me the little book of sisters, which is really cute. I won't show you it all, but it's because it's all just family photos. But it's a whole book of photos of me and her, and also my children. This one on the back's lovely. This is taken in France. That's me in the pink, I don't know, all-in-one dungaree 1980s outfit, and that's my little sister in the red top, and that's in a sunflower field in France. That's where we went every year. Growing up, every year we went camping in France. That's what we did every year. And she's included absolutely tons and tons of brilliant photos. Oh, look, I'm going to have to show you some of them. Okay, here's me. I'm the one with the hairdo. It was the 80s. Actually, this was probably the 70s. I was born in 1977. Actually, Jenny was born in 1979. So no, this would have been early 80s, probably about 1980. Check out my hair. That was a fringe. I haven't always had a fringe. I had a fringe all through my childhood, I think. Then I didn't. Then I got one cut in about 2 years ago. Blimey. That's me, a little bit older. I broke my arm 3 times growing up. Sprained it once and sprained my other arm once. Had to have it re-broken and reset once as well, and it's still a bit wonky. So that's us in the garden of the house we grew up in. Me with my arm in plaster, which was quite a lot of my childhood, me with my arm in plaster. And then I have to show you this because it's so funny. My dad took me and my sister away to America for the first time, I think, when I was about 14. When we arrived, we went to California, and it was a bit of a road trip along California. And when we arrived, it wasn't sunny, and I was a teenager. It's not sunny, it's so unfair, I hate you. So she's included this, and I actually included that picture in my dad's 60th collection of photos with the caption, "Ungrateful little buggers." So that's kind of a running joke. I have got some lovely gifts from fellow podcasters. Lily of the Nordic Stitches podcast very kindly and unexpectedly sent me these little yellow pinwheel coasters that she was working on. I saw her working on her Instagram, and she sent them to me. There's 6 of them. I won't show you all 6, they're all the same. And they're little coasters. They're really sweet. Yellow's my favourite colour, in case you didn't know. So thank you very much, Lily. That was really unexpected. She put a couple of other little bits in the parcel as well, and a card and everything like that. So that was really, really unexpected, and I really like those. They're really pretty, and I do use them. I use them for putting, you know, as coasters, but also for tea lights, which is an idea I got from Lorraine of Lorraine Pugh Designs, who sent me these little stars. Ooh, that just fell out. These are her starry hexy spells. Starry hexy spells, I think. Hexy starry spells. It's a pattern, a free pattern on Ravelry. Sorry. And she sent me all these little ones, and they're all in my favourite colour. Yellow and a contrasting blue, because yellow and blue are a lovely combination. And if you look on the pattern page, what's it called? Hexy Starry Spells is what they're called. If you look on the pattern page for it, she's got some gorgeous photos of all the different things you can do. You can make them small like this, or you can make them really big, and you can use them to make dream catchers. You can use them as coasters, placemats, just a decoration. You look on her project page, there's some gorgeous photos. So thank you very much, Lorraine. I was really pleased with those. And she also popped in a ton of other stuff. She sent me some yarn, yellow and blue, so I could make my own if I want. And also yellow, my favourite colour. And she also sent me a little bag of stitch markers, and in it is one of her handmade stitch markers. I assume it's one of yours, Lorraine. She makes these flower stitch markers, which I don't see anything like this anywhere else. It's got like a little beaded bit. Oh, it's Progress Keeper, so little Progress Keeper. Or stitch marker if you're crocheting. And they've got flowers on, so you can have, like, you can be working away on your project and have a flower on it, which is really lovely. So that's going to go into my my box of markers. So thank you very much, Lorraine, and thank you very much, Lily. That was really, really unexpected to get those little parcels in the mail, and it really did. I mean, getting stuff in the mail is so much fun, isn't it? Makes you feel really special and spoiled and thought about. So thank you. Speaking of getting things in the mail, my husband bought me another subscription to the Little French Meadow Mini Scheme Club. So I've now received 2 of those. I've received the March one, no, April and May I've received. So I thought I'd show you those. If you don't take part in this, they open slots for it every 3 months. And it's really reasonably priced. And honestly, it's a tiny little treat in your mailbox every 4 weeks, and I always forget about it, and then it arrives and I'm all excited, and then I have to save it as a little treat at the end of the day. So this was the April one, which was the Easter one, and the 2 little minis inside are called Fluffy Chick and Easter Bonnet, which are coming out a bit. If I hold them back, they probably come out a bit. Absolutely beautiful. They just scream Easter, and Easter eggs and flowers and spring and fluffy chicks, and just to make things even better, there's a little Easter bunny. I'm going to put it on the yarn in order to show. There's a little Easter bunny charm, and it also came with some little chocolate eggs. I must have, I think they're in the basket. They just must have fallen out in the basket. Moving on to the May one. Now May I got really excited about. It's called The Wizard of Oz, and the 2 yarns are Dorothy's Shoes and Over the Rainbow. So I opened it like this. They've got the gingham, they've got a sparkly red, obviously. Look at that. And then they got Over the Rainbow, which is this gorgeous rainbowy colour. And I was like, where's my stitch marker? There's always a stitch marker. There's no stitch marker. And then it slipped to the back. So I got a double surprise because I turned around and found this little guy. It's the Scarecrow, which you can't really see. There you go. Scarecrow stitch marker. And the little treat. There's always a little treat. If I only had a heart, little jelly sweets. And I'm not allowed to eat these. They have been promised. to the two little sweet stealing people I live with, which is my two daughters, by the way, in case you're wondering. So yeah, really pleased with that, and really recommend that mini clumps because it's really, like I say, it's not a huge, you don't feel like you're breaking the bank, you don't feel guilty about it, and it's, yeah, really enjoy it. I realise this episode is going to be really long. What can you do? So I think that's it. I'm not going to do Sharing the Love for the second episode running, purely because I can see already that even just this one section I've been talking for almost 40 minutes. So I think you've heard enough from me. I just wanted to mention the giveaway. So the Celebrate Everything giveaway to celebrate reaching 1,000 subscribers on Instagram, which is incredible. I could never have imagined that I would have that many followers on Instagram. And I'm just it makes me feel so happy that whatever I'm putting out into the world makes people happy enough to want to see it. That's nice, isn't it? So thank you very much if you're following me on Instagram or if you've come over from there. I've also, as I mentioned earlier, reached almost 600 subscribers. So we've raced past 500, which I can't even get my head around even a little bit. And I try not to think about, because if I thought about it, I wouldn't do this because it's nerve-wracking. I'm not the kind of person to stand up and talk to anybody. If you asked me to stand up in front of a room of 500 people and give a speech, I would run in the other direction. I couldn't. I actually don't think I could physically do that. I don't. So it's incredible. And thank you to every single one of you that have pressed subscribe and stay with me and come back and watch, because it's so good to know that I don't have the words, do I? It's good to know that when I'm sitting here in my kitchen talking into my phone, which is balanced on top of my water filter jug, that people are getting it and they understand what I'm saying, and they feel the same, and they can have this conversation with me even if we're not actually physically having the conversation, if that makes sense. Probably not. Hopefully you get the sentiment. And also my 40th birthday, which is now gone past, and I'm nearly like 40 in a fortnight, and won't be a long time 50. I've got some lovely Knitting I Love tags which you can sew onto your knitting. I showed them in the last podcast and I will show them again in the next one. I'm going to put that into the giveaway. One of my handmade bags, which will either be this little one here or the one yet to be sewn up, this one. Some hand-dyed yarn, which I will dye, which will be hand-painted. It won't be a solid colour, but I've yet to dye it. I have ordered more yarn, some more plain yarn from eBay, so that should be here pretty soon, and I might spend a bit of time next week doing that. Plus lots of lovely little extras like edibles and tea and all kinds of little things that I've been collecting. So it's going to be a really nice little package of things for the giveaway, and it's time to start this giveaway now. So this is the Celebrate Everything giveaway. I will open a thread in the Ravelry group, which is the Little Drops of Wonderful Ravelry group. And I need to think of a prompt, which despite my organisation and my notes, I haven't thought of. So let me think. It's got to be connected to celebrating. Tell me what the last thing you celebrated was and what you did to celebrate it. So if you go to the Ravelry group, by the time this is uploaded, hopefully I will have been organised enough to start that thread. I will only announce the winners on the podcast. So if you want to find out if you've won, you will need to be watching the podcast, which seems good because it's a podcast subscriber giveaway. And I'll put all the little notes about what you need to do in the thread. And we will run the giveaway until the end of May. You have got until May the 31st. Let's say 12 noon on May the 31st to go to the Ravelry group and answer the prompt. And then the nearest episode after that, I will announce the winners. But I'll keep you informed as we go along. I'll keep you in the loop, as they say. So I think I've talked about everything. So until next time, bye-bye.